And here we go.
Yes.
We are here with Last Sparrow with Mr. Scott Sylvia.
Yes, finally.
Finally, the long-awaited...
Finally, here we go.
The interview.
The interview.
It's like CNN here or something.
I know, right?
In the Situation Room.
This is the Situation Room. We were at my workshop.
We were at the warehouse making machines.
Yeah, be prepared for train.
Train multiple
yeah,
swearing.
Oh, there'll be plenty of swearing.
Throwing of tools.
There will be throwing of things. Maybe not tools, but we'll see.
Possibly some weeping. Alright, so we'll start out with when did you first become aware of tattoos?
I've talked about this before in interviews with people, but I have a very distinct moment when I knew I wanted to be tattooed. I saw, I don't know what era or where they're from, but these old black and white photos of tattooed like Jap dudes with like full body suits, and they were like set in like in the tubs.
Oh,
you
yeah,
see them every once in a
yeah.
while. Sometimes you see them recolorized or
yeah.
colored or whatever. And when I saw those for the first time, I saw the guys covered in tattoos, and I was like, whoa! And I was probably 10, and I was like, that's what I want. Like that's what I want. I want to be covered in tattoos. Like I knew that I wanted to be covered in tattoos. I don't know. You can get into like the psychology of that, of like,
sure, you
covering yourself up or what, whatever, you get in all that shit. But I just saw it and I was just like fascinated by it. Thought it was the coolest thing ever. And
did you have relatives for tattooed? Your dad?
No, nobody in my family's tattooed. Not one person in my family had a tattoo. My brother John got a tattoo in 8th grade. Some kid hand poked a cross on his back. Or maybe it was on the road. I don't know. He had this little cross. It was like that big. It was on a shoulder blade. He got it in 8th grade. And he somehow hid it from my parents his whole life.
That's pretty good.
Insane. Insane.
Wow.
Hid it from him forever. And I always thought it was like, maybe that has something to do with it, because it was the taboo of my brother. Always coming out of the shower, he had the towel over his shoulder. I mean,
nice.
I don't know how the fuck
awesome.
he did it, but he hid it from him forever. None of my parents knew about it till I covered it up. Till I started tattooing, I covered it up, and I was actually tattooing him in my mom's kitchen. And it was right after I started tattooing. I was tattooing in my mom's kitchen, and I did this, like, it was actually an Aaron Kane drawing of this like gesture head with like the fucking crazy hat, and he still has the goddamn tattoo on him too. And I covered it up, and my mom was like, "Oh, why aren't you doing that?" And blah, whatever. And I was like, "I'm covering up that tattoo he always had. He had this tattoo forever, Mom, covering it up." And she got so mad, and she was like, "You fuckers are all liars." I got so mad. You're all liars. And so tattooing was always like a funny thing with my mom. So she never really like got into it till way later on. Till I think she had to borrow money from me, and then she was like, "Yeah, maybe."
Yeah, it's okay. Now you can support me.
Yeah, yeah. And then,
which I think all parents are like that. They're kind of like, until they come down for dinner, you're like, "Oh, I got it." Like,
yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Right. Yeah, I grew up in Monterey, and I was born in San Jose, and I lived in the Santa Cruz Mountains when I was a kid, and then we moved to Monterey, down Pacific Grove, which is like a little suburb of Monterey there, and I went to high school, went to middle school and stuff with this guy named Aaron Kane, who most people know who he is. I don't think I have to explain much about that, but I went to high school with him, and we were friends in high school. And he started tattooing. He made like a jailhouse machine.
Oh, like
he was tattooing.
It's homemade.
Yeah, he was just like made a jailhouse machine, like rotary with a fucking big pen, the whole thing.
And that's who did your first tattoo?
Yeah, and he was tattooing everybody in school, man. He did fucking Slayer tattoo on my friend John Huff, and he did all kinds of he tattooed everybody. Everybody got a fucking tattoo from him with this rotary machine. So we all had, And I was 14 or 15. And I wanted to get a tattoo, and I know I wasn't 16. I was 14.
Well, yeah, you told me you rode your bike then.
Yeah, I rode my BMX bike, and I was hungover as fucking hell. And I had to ride my BMX bike, and it was like one of those random hot days in Monterey, and I just felt horrible. And I got to his house, and he had this big bedroom in his house, and I sat on his couch, and I leaned back on the couch, and I had to hold the old disposable razor, the plastic cap that used to come off of them.
Oh, yeah.
So I held that was the ink cap, and I had to lay back, and And he did it on my chest, and I lay back and I had to hold that thing, and he would dip in the thing and be tattooing me, and it fucking hurt like hell. He was doing this pig head.
Oh, that was the pig head?
Yeah, my first tattoo was a pig head. It was this thing I drew, and it was a pig head with a rose in its mouth, and it had sunglasses on, you know, because I had a rose mouth, because I'm romantic, you know, so. Fucking idiot, you know. I'm romantic, you know. I just have roses.
You're romantic and sunny.
And yeah, and he put the little fucking ping, little
nice.
glisten off the glasses on it. And I'm laying there like, I'm leaning back in his chair, and he's like half sitting on my lap, half sitting on the couch, tattooing my chest, and he pokes a hole in the bottom of the fucking thing with the needle, just sprays black everywhere, like fuck, whatever, you know. And I was so fucking stoked, but it hurt so bad, and I was like, maybe I'm not getting tattooed everywhere. Like, this hurts bad. And while we were still in high school, he got a job working at a tattoo shop. This guy, this old biker dude.
Is that Miller Cotton?
Miller Cotton. This old biker dude showed up into town with a weird Dodge van.
Oh, he wasn't from that town.
He moved from L.A. and he started. He had this weird Dodge van, and it said on the side of it, painted with a brush too. On the side of it, he had rolled paint with a roller, painted the whole van like this tan colored, and on the side of it in chopstick lettering said Master Miller Cotton's Tattooing on it. And Aaron somehow hooked up with him. I'm not quite sure. I think Aaron met him somewhere and started talking about tattooing, and Miller gave Aaron a job. And we were still, I think, we were senior year in high school maybe at this point.
Oh, really?
Aaron was tattooing at the tattoo shop. Aaron was working at the tattoo shop still in high school. And I went and he fixed my chest tattoo with like a regular machine. And Aaron did. And then it was like, oh, okay, it doesn't hurt that bad. You know, like it's not like okay, it's not supposed to be that bad.
Pull my heart out of my chest.
Yeah, it was brutal. And then I was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna get fucking tattooed. And
so then it was Miller Cotton's. That was.
Yeah, it was Miller Cotton's. It was in Pacific Road. It was in Monterey. The shop was in Monterey, on Foam Street. And it was like directly behind the sardine factory. Oh, and you could look out the window. And his thing was tattoo shop with the most beautiful view in the world, and it was fucking incredible. I mean, you looked out the windows and you saw right over the top of the sardine factory, and you just saw the entire Monterey Bay, and it was pretty fucking crazy. But it was like the second story in the back of this weird office building, and it wasn't like a real tattoo shop.
So was it just like, okay, Aaron was there, then I'm there, or
No.
did you just?
No, I had no idea of tattooing at that point.
That's what you're just.
It just didn't even dawn on me. Didn't even dawn on me that I was.
When did that come about?
Well, my parents never said anything about going to college or anything like that. My parents are all tradesmen. My dad's a carpenter. My dad was a draftsman when I was a kid at IBM, and then he left and went to a couple of companies. He became a carpenter. He became a general contractor, and my mom was a florist. So my whole life I grew up in a flower shop or working construction, and so I never thought about going to college. So in high school, I was working as a butcher at this grocery store in Monterey called the Monte Vista Market, and the guy that owned the grocery store was the butcher, and he taught me how to like break down beef and cut things and do this and that and do all these things.
You were a union.
Yeah,
butcher?
So I graduated high school, and my best friend in high school, his dad worked for Albertsons, and he was like he got promoted as the head of the meat department in like Los Angeles. So I moved to Los Angeles, moved to West Covina, and
it's fun.
Jesus Christ! So I went from Monterey to lived in West Covina, and I worked in Covina at a place called the Grocery Warehouse, and it was before Costco and all that shit. So it was like, you know, you had 10-pound fucking things of ground beef, like these logs of ground beef like this big, and so I got it. It was a union job, so I started the union. I had to start from the scratch, and was an apprentice, and you know, made nothing and was struggling, but I was like low man on the totem pole. And then they taught me. I went in early and fucking hoisted forequarters and hindquarters and bands on the bandsaw and made everything smaller, and you know, pallet jacked everything around and did all the stupid shit while the other guys did all this other stuff, cut everything up into steaks or whatever.
So when you were in LA, then your whole family, all your friends were up here, in Monterey.
Yeah,
so I didn't know down there just to work.
Didn't know a soul down there. And Aaron had told me. Aaron told me. I had talked to Aaron on the phone. He's like, "Oh man, you got to go to fucking Spotlight. You got to go to Spotlight. Check out Spotlight. You got to see Bob Roberts. He's the guy that does all the punk rock tattoos." So I was like, "Okay, cool. He's got tattoos all the punk rockers." I'm like, "All right." And then he said, "You got to go to Sunset Strip, man. That's the other one. You got to go to Sunset Strip." I'm like, "Okay." So I took like a day trip to Hollywood, and I went to Sunset Strip, and I remember just being in there forever.
That's Greg James.
Yeah, Greg James was there when I was there. Greg James was there, and And Riley Baxter, Jesse Tuesday's brother, Riley worked there, and he was like fucking this crazy quiff, and he was the coolest looking dude in the world, you know. And they were all fucking super cool in there. And there's like hot chicks, and fucking, you know, just the walls just covered in photos of fucking Motley Crue and all this shit. And I was like, God damn, man, this is like 1989, you know.
Yeah.
And then and they were super nice, whatever. And I had no money. I just was like looking, like holy shit, you know. It was like going to the museum or something. And then I went to Bob's shop,
which was a whole different
deal. Whole different deal. Went in and it was like, yeah, it definitely had like the awesome sign by the door.
Yeah.
Which doesn't need to be repeated on video.
Exactly.
It says all kinds of really awesome shit. And I was in there, and Bob had a mohawk. This was when Bob had a mohawk at the time, and Bob was tattooing or whatever. And I was in there for a long time, just looking around. He's like, "You need any help?" And I was like, "No, I'm just looking, man."
Just
I'm like looking around, whatever.
Like 10 by 10, looking around for a long time.
Yeah, like I'm looking. I looked at every single design on the wall, man. I looked at everything in there, and I was just like, "What the fuck, man?" And then Bob started talking to me, and he's like, "Well, you want to get tattooed?" And I was like, "Nah, man, I don't have any money." And he's like, "What the fuck? You think this is a library?" And I was like, "Oh!" And he started yelling at me. I was like, "Oh!" Like, "Oh God!" And I was like a little kid. I was like, "Oh fuck! All right, laters." And I ran out of there. And I was like, "Holy shit!" He just sort of like barked me out the door, and it was like very different experiences. And then I went back to my house and whatever. And then I had decided I wanted to go to art school
instead of being a butcher.
Well,
or just
yeah, and I was just by myself, and so I was drawing a lot, and I'd drawn my whole life. My mom was a painter as a kid. Both my brothers could draw their asses off, so I just grew up drawing, not drawing tattoos, but just drawing, you know.
Sure.
And I decided I wanted to go to art school. I wanted to go to art school to do advertising, like advertising art, you know. Like I wanted to make fucking ads and shit like that, and commercial artist. And I called my dad on the phone. I said, "Hey, Dad, I'm thinking about going to college." You know, they have those commercials on TV and shit.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, Dad, I think I'm going to go to art school." And he's like, "Yeah." I was like, "Well, I was wondering if maybe you could help me out." And he's like, "That's what they got student loans for." I was like, "Okay. All right, cool, whatever." And I was like, "All right, whatever." And I had mailed drawings up to Miller Cotton's for Aaron about the next tattoo I wanted to get, whatever. And at this point, I'd been in and out of Miller's, and Aaron had done a couple tattoos on me. I had a couple by now. He'd done one on my arm before I even graduated high school. I had two before I even graduated high school. And Miller offered me a job. Wanted to know if I wanted a tattoo.
Straight up.
And I was like, fuck. Tattoo? Shit. Sure, why not? And in my head, I thought, I'd start tattooing and work my way through school, you know? Like, I could work my way through school. That'd be cool. And so I'd committed to my boss that I would work through Thanksgiving, which is obviously, like, you know, a busy part of tattooing. A busy part of being a butcher is, you know, and so I said I'd work through Thanksgiving and I'd leave after Thanksgiving. My dad had bought some big truck thing down there, and I put a deposit on him, and so he came out, picked up the truck, put all my shit in it, and we drove up on Saturday. Sunday after Thanksgiving, I tattooed myself. I tattooed grapefruits all day. That was my apprenticeship. My apprenticeship was this. Tattooed grapefruits one day. Tattooed a bunch of grapefruits, all kinds of shit. Tattooed myself the next day.
Classic.
Tattooed this tiger head on my thigh. Single needle, 14 needle round shader.
Quality.
Yeah. And then I tattooed the kid they fired. They fired this kid for the life of me. I was trying to think the other day the kid's name. I don't know the kid's name. They fired him because he wasn't working out so I could get a job.
Oh.
And they fired him, and so I tattooed him. He was just like some scrote punk rock kid thing that was hanging around, you know. They just some kid. And I tattooed him.
Did he know he was fired when you were tattooing him?
Oh, fuck yeah. Fuck, he was fucking fired. He knew. He didn't care. He was just like, oh, whatever. So I tattooed him, and I remember the exact tattoo I did on him was something that Aaron had drawn. It was like the sword, and then like the beginning stages of the Swiss cheese.
Oh, nice.
It was the very beginning of that stuff. And
straight lines and circles.
Yeah, it was like a lot of like woo, that shape in it, and I tattooed on the back of his calf, and it was like, you know, a good size. And then the next day, I tattooed the public. Whoa. And I was told to tell people you've been tattooing for 2 years, and I did that until I'd been tattooing for 3.
Wow.
The first month I worked for free. He got everything.
Oh, you charged, but you dropped.
Oh yeah, I charged. I didn't get paid nothing for a month. And then the next month, I worked at 30%, where I took home 30%.
Nice. Which was probably the most money you've ever made in life.
Yeah, it was still, well, yeah, it was still pretty good. Yeah, it was good. I was, 18.
Yeah.
It was like the end of 1989. I was like 18, and all I wanted was to get laid and have a Harley. I mean, that's all I thought about. All I could think about was getting tattooed and banging out girls, like just getting, just like I wasn't very savvy in high school, and I had never been very savvy. You could probably count on both hands how many times I had sex by the time I started tattooing, and so yeah, it's all I cared about. I wanted a Harley, and I wanted the tattoo, and I just immediately fell in love with tattooing and never wanted to go to school. That was it. And I worked for Miller for a long time.
How long did you work at Miller Cottons?
I worked at Miller Cottons probably a year and change. He was. I mean, to this day, I'm still very grateful for him. And I heard that he was different when he died. He died a handful of years ago, and I heard that he was a different person when he died. But when I worked with him, it was a crazy situation. He was
pretty rough.
Yeah, he would he would just be at the drawing table. It was the beginning of stun guns, when stun guns first came out. And he would just fucking stun gun you at any given moment.
Oh, God.
And I'd be sitting at the table, and I had to make needles for everybody, It was the back
How
of the
many
day.
people worked there? Was you and Aaron and
It was me and Aaron. There was a girl named Natasha Robinson who worked there. And this other kid that worked there that, I don't even know whatever happened to him, this other punk rock kid from Santa Cruz, and he worked there. And so I had to make needles for everybody. So I'd be sitting at the drawing table, and his door to his, perv office thing was over here. And I'd be making needles, and he'd just come out the doorway with a stun gun and fucking light me up sitting in the chair making needles. I'd be like, oh, look around, fucking needles everywhere and shit, and fuck. And he'd be just whatever the hell, and he'd just stun gun you. He stun gun me in the nuts one time, and would just be like any time, and he'd fucking punch you and stab you with dirty needles. And just did fucking crazy shit, man.
Sounds like a modern day apprenticeship.
Probably, I wouldn't doubt it. And this is the era. We were talking about this today at the barbershop. Me and Nick were at the barbershop today, and we're talking about there were straight razoring his head. And we were talking about I started tattooing. We used straight razors to shave everybody. Yeah. So it was it was pre the disposable razor thing, and you shaved everybody, and it was before everybody started doing single service. So we had machines. Everything was a Spalding setup. The toaster box, everything was this machine rack with test tubes in it with Sidex. And you use that setup, you would rinse the machine out, and you would use that setup till that needle was bad. And I did not know when that needle was bad. No one ever told me that needle was bad. Shortly, I only worked with Aaron for a little while. We were still friends, but he got himself fired. No, he got himself fired. He borrowed my car to go to the record store, and apparently he went to the record store in Santa Cruz. Instead, so he just took off to Santa Cruz, and I was left me there by myself. I'd been tattooing a month. Left me at the shop by myself tattooing all these GI dudes and shit. And Miller came in and was like, "Where's Aaron?" I was like, "I don't know, man. He borrowed my car to go to the fucking record store." I don't know who the fuck he is. I'd just been working. I don't know. And Miller, and by the time I came around, Aaron Miller fired his ass. And so then I was just by myself in this place, and I didn't know nothing. I didn't know a fucking thing. And Natasha only worked a couple of days, and she'd been tattooing a long time at her house, and she only worked a couple of days, and so she helped me out as much as she could. And then the first tattooer I met outside of that was Clay Decker. Clay Decker came into town out of the blue and just showed up and got a job, had a job.
But Clay had been tattooing?
Clay had been tattooing for about as long as I had been at that point. Or maybe a little bit more, maybe a year longer than me at that point or whatever. And he came, and it was he was my first person outside of Aaron Kane and Natasha that was a tattooer. And I was like, whoa, cool, whatever. And we hit it off, and he stayed at my house for a long time, and we just, brutalized each other's skin. And and then the next tattooer I met that was somebody outside that was this dude Pote came to town.
Who?
Pote Sawyer, who used to own Body Electric in LA and stuff like that. He's Swiss. He showed up into town out of the blue, was just traveling through town and stopped by the shop, and he was covered in Philip Lou tattoos.
Oh, so that was just mind-blowing.
He had the first bendy tattoo machine I'd ever seen in my life. He has this very famous one. Anybody that knows Pote knows what it is. But it's this bendy, twisty tattoo machine on his leg, and it was done by Philip. And he was covered in Philip tattoos. He had sleeves from him. He had a back piece from Philip that Philip's little sister filled in part of the red, and he had a battle royale on his back from Philip. This is 1989, 1990. Yeah. And this thing is fucking sick, dude. And I'm like, what the fuck? Holy shit.
Right, so here's a guy from other part of the world.
Yeah, and at that point, I was still using 1s and 3s. And had got up to flats. I was using 14 rounds and flats, 6 flats. And Pote showed me and Clay how to make magnums. and it was fucking like totally. It was like mind blowing. And so Poe was the first.
The weave with the aluminum foil or the razor
blade.
Yeah,
with the razor blade, and you know he showed you how far on the razor blade and the spread and all that shit, and that started to change everything. That was like a fun thing. But I worked for Miller for as long as I could, and then he took off on the. This is before there was a lot of tattoo conventions, so there'd only be a couple of conventions a year, which seems totally insane to say that now because there's like one every weekend. But he took off on the Easy Rider Rodeo, which we did a bunch of those. Whenever we could be around, we'd go to the Easy Rider Rodeo and tattoo at the rodeo. And he took off on the tour. Him, and by now he had opened a shop in Berkeley, and that was where Whitehead and Eric Hogan and Lance Lloyd and Natasha had moved to Berkeley and worked up there. And
so Miller Cotton was like this beginning of the Bay Area tattoo scene. I mean,
Schmo worked there.
Yeah, I mean those are all
maybe knows
names.
Schmo Dog.
Yeah, sure.
He worked there. Schmo worked in Monterey too, and this guy Juan Ortega started working. He was from Santa Cruz. He started working in Monterey, so we worked together a lot. But his deal was he would get young kids and he would teach them how to tattoo. He would never tell you how to get your equipment. He wanted to try to keep you on lockdown, so you didn't have any equipment. You just worked for him. You worked at fucking 40% or whatever it was, you know, and that was like his deal.
Sure,
that was his deal. And he had split on tour in this thing, and kept draining the bank accounts. And I was 18, and I was supposed to be running this guy's business. I was like barely knew how to take care of myself, and he kept draining the bank accounts. And then one day there was the phone call of like, "Hey man, I'm gonna need you to pack the shop up." I'm like, what the fuck? So I had to pack this whole tattoo shop up, put it in storage, and at that point, me and Eric Hogan had become real good friends. And he was from Sacramento, and we went to Sacramento a lot. And when I didn't have a shop, he was like, "Well, fuck it, let's go to Sacramento." So we went to Sacramento.
And then Sacramento was where American Graffiti.
Yeah, and then we were having coffee one day at this place called Java City. And we parked on this one street, and we went to Java City, and we came back, went back to the car, and I'm looking at this place, and there's a place for rent. It's like the downstairs of this like Victorian house. I was like, fuck man, it's for rent. And the landlady lived next door, and I knocked on her door, Mrs. Lee, I remember Mrs. Lee. And I knocked on the door, and this little, 4'1" Chinese lady comes out. She's like, "Oh yeah, I'll show you." And she comes in, shows us the place. $400 a month.
Whoa.
$400 a month. Between me, him, and this kid Nate. Well, between me and him, it was me and him originally. We were going to open the shop, and then we were going to try to get Schmo involved in it, but Schmo didn't have any money, and there was some problem with Schmo, and so Nate, who was Nate Sponsler was one of the guys working with us for Miller. We got him on the deal, so the three of us, we came up with $400 and rented the place, and we built American Graffiti for $400. But before we did it, we went and talked to a bunch of people in town, and there wasn't anybody really tattooing in downtown. There was this guy named Broadway Bob. Britain knows about Broadway Bob. Broadway Bob was like this old kook dude right off of Broadway, and he tattooed every young kid, but it was like he had rotary machines hanging from the ceiling, and he had a vise on his station that had a magnet in it, and he put a butter knife on it, and he would pour all his pigment out on the butter knife, and he just went out the butter knife, fucking tattoo people, just fucking shredded people up. It was awesome. So he was the only guy downtown. Outside of Sacramento, there was Bill Liberty, Ken Larson, Dave Vandenberg, Dave's Custom Tattooing, PJ's Backdoor Studio, and Wild Bill. Those were all the shops in Sacramento at the time. And
King Cameron.
Well, King Cameron hadn't opened up yet. And so we had gone to like this tattoo gathering thing they had, and I told Bill Liberty and everybody that was going to open up downtown, and Bill Liberty was like, "You can have it."
Oh, really?
Because at the time, downtown was full of like junkies and fucking crackheads and crazy homeless people. It was burly, and I was like, "Cool, man." Like, I didn't know enough to know that I hadn't been tattooing long enough to open a shop, but I knew enough to tell people like, "Hey, I'm going to open a shop." You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I knew that.
So somebody had to. I mean, you had to pick that up somewhere.
Right. Well, I mean, Miller was a brutal motherfucker, and so he had a real strict lines of things that were done and not done, and whether they were right or not right was irrelevant at the time. But there was a certain amount of code and an ethic involved in the shop, and there were swift repercussions if anything steered out of the way. He would whoop a motherfucker's ass.
Yeah.
He had a sweet mullet too. He was a big motherfucker, dude. He was a big motherfucker. So we opened up for $400, and we built the original American Graffiti for $400. We bought the countertops, the 2x4s, the plywood. We made the countertops, made this fucking makeshift front counter in this little building that there was like, what do you think the roof ceiling was on that? Like 6.
Yes.
It had to be like less than 7-foot ceiling in it.
In the shop?
Yeah. What was that fucking...
Didn't you have like some metal paneling in there too?
No, it was all just sheetrock. But when you went in the bathroom, you stepped up, you had to kind of squat down. The bathroom was like a foot raised up, and so it was just this little shithole. And we opened it up, man, and we didn't have any flash. We didn't have anything. We just drew everything for everybody. And
so it was like custom right off the gate.
Yeah, that was it. We didn't want to do flash. We didn't want to. Miller's shops were never like traditional. They never had flash on the walls. They always had them in binders, like he thought he was changing the world by putting the flash in the binder instead of having it on the wall. And so we just didn't have. We didn't own any fucking flash.
Sure.
You know, I didn't own a single sheet of flash. I did have this Leo tribal set, which was probably like the fucking most glorious thing in the entire world at that time, because tribal stuff was like popular and didn't suck yet. Yeah. Now it's popular and doesn't suck. You know what I mean? Now it's like evolved into that. It's got past the jock armband thing. And so we just drew everything, and we were like stupid kids that did it, whatever the fuck. And
so you guys are just, was Eric Hogan?
It was me, Eric Hogan, and Nate Spencer.
And how long had he been tattooing?
Less than me. I'd been tattooing maybe 2 years at this point, and he'd been tattooing about a year.
And so you guys, fuck it, the list is open.
Yeah. Which, like I said now, like looking at it now, I had no business opening a shop. I'd kick my own ass now for it. But at the time, it was okay. I mean, it was like, no one's told me not to. No one said, hey, what the fuck are you doing? And nobody cared for a while until we got real popular. And then people cared. The day we opened, Ken Cameron opened California Tattoo, just ironically on the same exact day. And it turned it from 6 tattoo shops in all of Sacramento to 8. In all of Sacramento, including downtown and Citrus Heights and Road, all of it was 8 tattoo shops. And now there's probably 80.
Jeez.
So it was wide open. And Nate was dating this girl named Brooke Dempsey, who at the time was Marcus Pacheco's. She had dated him when she was over. So she moved to Sacramento. She had like full color Cubist sleeves from Marcus, and people literally couldn't get their minds wrapped around her. Like even the female tattooers in town, because Wild Bill had a couple, and Miss Mickey tattooed at Backdoor Studio. People couldn't get their mind wrapped around her tattoos because they were like art, they were like paintings. They were like art tats, and they're just like Sacramento had no clue what the fuck. She was the most tattooed woman in Sacramento in like 1991, and people would just be like, "What the?" At the grocery store would lose their fucking mind to where she would wear long sleeves because it got such a pain in the ass that people would just fuck with her so much that it was just insane.
So, you three, American Graffiti, like, when I first started tattooing, which was 94, that shop, you were already out of that shop.
94, I moved to San Francisco.
Okay, but before, so, 94, when I started, that shop was, like, legendary at being open for 4 years or whatever.
Yeah, I mean,
like, I had heard stories about that in Chicago, and just, like, I heard how crazy Sacramento was at the time. I heard how crazy tattooing was at the time. I heard how crazy your partner was at the time.
Yeah,
everything was kind of just like it was a. Like,
there was a lot of insanity.
Yeah, like that's an institution in Sacramento.
Yeah, I mean
it's a big deal in tattooing. Like in the start of that whole '90s.
Yeah, I mean, I was still tattooing in Monterey, and we had gone to the first tattoo convention I ever went to was in Anaheim, and it was me and Aaron, and I'd met Jeff Rasher because Aaron had moved to Santa Barbara at the time, chasing this girl, and he met Jeff Rasher there. Jeff Rasher lived there, and they became friends. And Aaron met Marcus at this convention, and Marcus Pacheco wanted to open a shop in San Francisco and wanted Aaron to be his partner because Aaron was doing this crazy biomechanical shit back then, and Aaron was doing some groundbreaking shit as a kid. He was like Mr. Overachiever guy, and so he was like really fucking knocking it. And Aaron asked me like, "Hey man, can you loan me the money?" Because me and him always had this relationship where I was always the responsible one. And, hey, can you loan me the money? I want to open the shop with Marcus. I said, sure. He opened the shop with Marcus. So that was sort of like how I met Marcus
and that was
how I started.
Primal Urge.
Yeah, that was the original Primal Urge, which was a very long time ago. And then when we opened American Graffiti, I had to go chase Aaron down to get the money back to be able to pay the lumber bill. Because we had bought lumber on this dude's account, on his boss's account at the lumberyard, and we needed to pay it off before he got the bill, and so I had to shake money out of Aaron for it, and so that's sort of how like I got in that thing with all those people. Like I was hanging out with Marcus a lot, and I just kept bringing that stuff back to Sacramento, you know.
Yeah,
and
all the stuff was going in.
Yeah, building up. You know, it was like it was the beginning of the new school thing. That was it. It was like we were all just going nuts and making everything chrome and fucking thick ass outlines, and it was a free for all, you know. Now people use the term new school, and that just seems so trite. It's like 22 years ago we were doing new school. It was, you know.
Well, yeah, I mean that was the age of, you know, the tattoo magazines started getting popular, and like it was like every month it was let's look and see what those guys in San Francisco were doing.
Right.
You know. So then you were spreading that to Sacramento.
Yeah, and it was going to Sacramento. And really the whole time I just wanted to do traditional tattoos. Like I wanted to do just like shit that you could tell what it was from across the fucking street. Like I wanted to do big, bold, traditional stuff. But I didn't know how to do it.
Right, like who was influential in that? Because those guys weren't doing that.
I mean, I had the Tattoo Times. I had the Tattoo Times,
so
and it's
the Bible
very limited reference, right? So,
yeah.
So you only have a couple pages of Sailor Jerry designs. Then you know, you have a couple of fucking Higgs designs you're looking at. But there was no reference. You know, there was no fucking reference to it. And people don't realize, like, now there's fucking books.
Yeah.
Like, books and books and books. But nobody gave a fuck about Old Flash then. No one gave a fuck about Bob Shaw Flash or Burt Grimm shit or any of that. You're talking about Bob Wick, you know, like Wicks or any of that shit. Like, nobody even gave a fuck about that. They had that off the wall. It was all that J.D. Crowe shit. It was all, you know, it was all that shit. It was all the 80s. Leftover 80s, 70s, that Spalding shit was up, which was rad, which is what I started tattooing on, was like Reapers with shotguns with Swazis in the barrels on GIs and whatever the fuck, that's what you did. And that was like the dynamic I wanted. But I didn't know how to tattoo it. I was tattooing it with a single.
Right.
And so not a fucking 7 round.
Yeah, you're not getting a look.
Right, so I didn't know how to do it. Bold, right. And so the whole time I wanted to do that shit, and I didn't know how to do it. And then I started seeing the Higgs tattoos.
Coming out of San Francisco.
Yes, I started seeing the Higgs tattoos. The first time I met Higgs was when he worked for Erno, and I was watching him draw, and I was like, "What the fuck?" Aaron was getting a sleeve from Greg Coles, was doing a biomechanical sleeve on Aaron, and I was like, "What the fuck?" Watching Dan draw, and I was like, "Holy shit!" And then he went to Realistic, and then it was pre-Tattoo City. You started seeing the Dan stuff, and like. In like the Ed books, but you didn't. There was no. The first real reference I had was the Malone Sailor Jerry line book when he first came out with that.
Yeah.
And that was so long ago, but it was just a line drawing.
You know,
and
shaded or.
Yeah, I mean, and so much of traditional tattooing is the line, but it's also how that line plays to the eye. So you shade things and stack images in a certain way, and you make an eye track on a design in a certain way. And it looks totally stupid and simple, but it's not that simple. And so if you don't have a way to go from that, like there wasn't Sailor Jerry books. There wasn't fucking Flash books to look at how that shit was spitiated. Like, I didn't know the fuck to do that shit. So I was fucking doing it like a kid that was tattooing free-for-all, new school, untrained fucking retard.
Sure. Doing
it. So I was doing fucking roses that looked shiny. Sure. And shading, you know, the leaves all fucking stupid and whatever. Yeah, and I didn't know any of that shit. Like, nobody had that shit. And I just wanted to do traditional tattoos. But I excelled at, like, the new school thing, and I could do the chrome, and I could do the designs, and I could draw that stuff, and I could do the cubist shit, and I could pack color super solid and bright, and I had those tools to do it. And at some point, Marcus offered me a job.
So, you were still at American Graffiti, and Marcus offered you a job.
Yeah. And Marcus Pacheco offered me a job. I came down and Aaron was like, "Hey man," Jeff Rasher told me like, "Hey man, I think Marcus is going to offer you a job." I was like, "Fuck, really?" Because I'd come down and Elio and Timothy were working there, and I came down and met Elio, and I wanted Elio to do one of my ribs, and so I started getting tattooed by Elio. So I was in and out of Primal Urge at the time, and Marcus had started my back by then, and Marcus offered me a job. And
So were you over Sacramento at this time? Were you just...
No, I was just sort of bored. It was 4 years in it there. I was 4 years in it there, and I was running. I did everything for the shop. I was like the dad of the shop. Hogan was running fucking wild. And Nate was never around. He was busy learning to play guitar. He lived with Kevin Seconds at the time, and he wanted to be like, thought he was going to be the next Nirvana or something. And then, and so he was never around. No one was ever around. I was always the one there tattooing. I always paid the fucking bills. I did everything, and I just felt like I wasn't very inspired anymore. I just felt, and the opportunity to go to Primal Urge and work with Marcus, I was like, fuck, you bet. You know, and I went, and it was sort of, I went from this totally insane street shop where we fought all the time, and it was just, you know, we were wild animals, man. You couldn't go to a show without getting in a fight.
Yeah,
you couldn't do anything. So it was just like, I was just like, it took a wild animal and put me in a cage in this room, and I was supposed to act like an art fag, man. I was supposed to like talk about light sources and these things and blah 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 and all this shit, you know. And I was just like, what the fuck, you know, like cussing and swearing and acting like a lunatic in this fucking private studio, you know. It was on the second story. You had a buzz to get in, and they had like a receptionist and a fucking, you know, they did all your shit. They scrubbed your tubes for you and cleaned your stations and all that stuff. And I was, and I did not. I mean, I tried to fit in there. I just did not fit in very well there. And but I did learn an immense amount there. I didn't miss an opportunity to, like when I was before I went in Sacramento, when I left Sacramento, I would stay up all night, drawing all night, every night. And when I moved to San Francisco, I did the same thing. I moved with this girl, and our relationship was shit. And I just stayed home and drew every fucking night. I drew constantly. And I just, Marcus was like this example. I never knew to be this prepared ever. And I've talked about this other times with the people, but he would go in his room, and he had this big, gigantic fucking room, man. And he'd be tattooing, and his shit was right in the middle of the room. Like, he was in the center of this gigantic room. You know, most people would set up on a wall, but he was set up in the middle of this room. And the walls were, like, coated in these, like, illustration boards that he would draw on. And they would have the people's drawings taped on them with fucking color examples and fucking, I mean, everything done to it, man. Like, where you were like, what the fuck? Color studies, and he had like little color drawings on the side, and like he would draw, like, this thing always blew my mind. I talked about it before. He had like draw like a light bulb with the arrow pointing, with a three-dimensional arrow pointing which way the light would be shining in the perspective to it. You know what I mean? So he would draw a 3D cone-shaped fucking arrow that would be pointing at it, and I was just like, what the fuck, dude? And he would have like a yellow light bulb there, and it would be a blue light bulb over here showing over here the blue light source and shit. And he was like prepared, man. Like, he did work. Like, he put in work for every tattoo, and I had never done that because I was like fighting and screwing and fucking drawing and whatever. I just drew the tattoo, man. I didn't think that much through with it. I never thought that much through with what I was doing. I was just having a great time doing it. And when I got there, I was like, whoa, time to get fucking serious, you know?
Reel it in a little bit.
And I worked there for a long time, and I just did not fit. I just couldn't fit in there. And but Jeff Rasher worked there, and me and him were good friends, and we've been great friends ever since.
What years were this?
This is 94 to 96.
94 to 96.
Yeah, 96. Freddie Corbin came and talked to me and Jeff and was like, hey man, Eddie's going to open a shop. Now, mind you, Freddie came to me. And at the time, mind you, I'm in San Francisco, and Higgs is working at Tattoo City with Eddie and Igor, and Freddie was there, and then Freddie wasn't there. Freddie was in Amsterdam and all that stuff, and Freddie ended up working at American Graffiti when I left. Freddie went, Jeff Whitehead went to American Graffiti when I left, and so it's like the city is going the fuck off at this point. Like, I mean, it is like no fucking joke. There are, you know, Nala was working there. You had all these fucking people that are great. Aaron had Everlasting going now with Mike Davis in it, and they were doing the fucking just awesome shit.
It was like the battle of like the heavyweights.
But it was never a battle. No, but, there was I know, but I mean, you would think it would be, like, because egos are involved and they're artists and we're fucking self-centered beasts and all that shit. So you would think it would, but it wouldn't be. You would go to fucking the Horseshoe Coffee Shop, and Freddie would be there with Eddie, and fucking Igor would be hanging out, and fucking Patrick Collin worked at the fucking the restaurant everybody ate at, and so everybody just knew each other, and it wasn't like that anybody respected me or knew anything about me, but everybody just knew each other and hung out, and so there was like a dialogue a little bit about it. And so I knew Eddie a little bit. I didn't know Eddie well. I had gotten a tattoo on my forearm from him. I was super intimidated by him, dumbfounded by him, and Freddie came and said, "Hey man, Eddie's going to open a shop, and he wants to know if you and Jeff would work there." I was like, "Well, fuck yeah, man! Jesus Christ, really? Like, what the fuck, you know?" And this time, I just did not. At this point, I just was just trying to hang on at Prime Large, and
just the pace and
just like it just wasn't my thing. Like I just did not fit in there very well. And then Eddie, we met with Eddie, and he was going to open 222, and offered me and Jeff a job. And Freddie was originally supposed to work there, and that didn't work out for whatever reason Eddie had. So it was me, Jeff, and Eddie, and Gary Kosmala, which I didn't really know Gary. I never met Gary until I worked with him, and he just blew my mind.
Yeah.
Because he was doing the craziest travel shit ever. Like
yeah,
because he had worked with Leo and he had done all this stuff, but he was just doing the shit that was just mind blowing of what travel stuff could be. And I was just like, whoa! And he was real serious. He's a real serious person. He's real serious about it. And me and Jeff were there. You know, me and Jeff are still just fucking retards. You know, we're having the time of our lives. You know, and we were like just like the greatest friends, and always, you know, down for each other. And we, you know, we started 222, and then it was a whole nother realm of school.
Yeah, with
of
Eddie.
Like Eddie. Like I owe three people everything in my career: Aaron Kane, Marcus Pacheco, and Eddie Deutsch. Later on, Freddie comes into play, but those three dudes, my life would be nothing without those three dudes. Like my life would be absolutely terrible if I did not go to middle school with Aaron Kane.
Sure.
And I did not get my first tattoo from him, and I did not fall in love with tattooing. My life would suck. Because everything that is great in my life has happened because of my job.
Sure.
Because I've been blessed enough to do this job. I met my wife. I have my kids. I have, you know, everything that is important to me is because of that. And so Eddie, you had to earn the information from Eddie. But Eddie had real information. Yeah, Marcus had art.
Yeah. But Eddie had that link to those old guys, and
yeah, he had Ed Hardy.
Yeah.
In his belt. You know what I mean? He had mad skills before he ever touched Ed. Before he ever got working with Ed. All that shit he did in New York, dude. Fuck, man. Those fucking Oni demons on the fucking blender things and all. Just Jesus fucking Christ, dude. Like, the Soriyama fucking robot chicks and shit. I mean, there's people now who maybe now are... There's people who have been tattooing now that don't even know who the fuck Eddie is. Have no idea what the fuck... The shit they're doing is directly linked to this guy who is like the fucking craziest, talented person ever. And so working with him was... I felt totally inadequate. Like I had no business being there, and but you had to earn the information. So if you had a question, he'd be like, "Well, you know, man, you kind of, you know," and everything's a riddle with him. He never answered a question the whole way. He'd be like, "Hey, Eddie, you want to go to dinner tonight?" "Yeah, man, we'll see." It was never like, "Yeah, fuck yeah, it's 6 o'clock, let's go to dinner." No, yeah, but maybe we'll see. Everything was always a vague thing with him, and so he'd be like, "Hey, Eddie. Like, I gotta do this thing. Can you show me how to draw some water?" And he would be like, "Well," and he would show you mostly it. And then he would leave you on your own to fucking work it out. And I would sit all night just drawing and drawing and drawing and work it out. And but he would never give you the whole fucking thing. You would have to earn it. Like, he would never give you the whole deal, you know?
Yeah.
Like...
Well, which is completely opposite of now.
Right.
Where you could learn how to do anything you want in 15 minutes.
Right.
There's all the obvious stuff.
Well, tattooing now is full of all these fucking retards that just want their ego stroked, so they want to have an apprentice. So this is my apprentice. This is my apprentice, fucking Sasquatchy with a fucking face tat, who's fucking, 19, who is fucking thinks he knows everything and is an instant old school guy.
Right.
And, he's ran out and bought all his fucking vintage machines and whatever the fuck. It's full of retards like that, but that's not real. I mean, that's not like, you had to I'm not trying to do the back in my day, blah, blah, blah thing, but you couldn't just buy fucking needles, man.
Sure.
I remember it was the most glorious thing in the world when I got the needle company people. Where the fuck are those people? The old man would answer the phone. It was like you were calling their house, and you would fucking...
Yeah, it is...
and I still have the Rolodex that has the fucking number in it. And they were like in Texas or whatever the fuck. And you call this old man, he answers, like, oh!
Was it Colonial?
Yes. Colonial Neal. And so, I remember that was such a huge fucking deal to get that number, man. That was a fucking big deal.
Yeah, you calmly be sitting out eating dinner.
Yeah, man, it was,
talk
yeah,
to you,
exactly,
wife would talk to you.
Now it's fucking, everybody's like, nobody even knows how to make a fucking needle anymore. They just buy the shit, and it's just the way it is. But yeah, you know, you had to earn, and Eddie came from that world of not telling anybody anything. So you had to earn the stuff, which is good because it made me work so hard. I mean, I worked fucking my ass off there, and I'm not naturally talented. Like, I'm not a person that just picks up a fucking pencil and I can draw anything I want. Like, I'm not like Mike Wilson is like that.
Sure.
I bet Grimy is probably like that. Like, but I am not that person. Like, I just have to grind away at it and grind away at it to learn how to do them. And so Eddie gave me a lot of the tools, showed me a lot of things about how things would lay out and how things don't fall in the same line, and you do this, you do that, but would never give you the whole fucking deal. He would never just do your drawing for you. He would never, you had to do the shit. And I loved working there. I mean, it was a great 4 years because like Mike Wilson used to come out all the time and he'd stay at my house for a fucking month. You know what I mean?
Sure.
He would just stay at my house and we would just draw and fucking have a great time. And it was, I'd watch him, like, one trip he was drawing dragon heads, and it was just him drawing dragon heads. I filled an entire sketchbook of dragon heads. And it was just like, by the time he was done, he could draw it almost in every way he wanted to. You know what I mean? And that's just how he could look at a thing and find the shape of it and understand the shape of a design and what that shape is relative to it. And he could just replicate it, or he could make it his own in like 2 minutes, and I just like fuck watching him do it. You know what I mean? And so it was a good time, and I learned a lot of shit there.
So 3222, Whitehead, Lehigh are at Hardee's.
Yeah.
You and Ratchet.
Well, they at one point they were at Primal Urge, and Whitehead got hired and fired from Ed more than anybody.
Right.
So he was one of his multiple tours back there.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was at Tattoo City. Eddie wanted to hire Tim, but we had already told Juan we would hire him.
Okay, so Juan was there.
So when we had Juan at this one, yeah, Gary left, and we ended up we told Eddie had told Juan that we would hire him, and then we met, and then Jesse Tuesday came in and worked a couple days after the San Francisco convention, and he was awesome, man. He was super cool, and I'd never really met him before that. And then Eddie hired Jesse too, and so Juan and Jesse came, and Jesse is fucking great too, because he was one of those dudes that just put in all the work, just put it in, like, just working at it, and so it was me, Jeff, Jesse, Juan, and Eddie at 222.
And whereas like Eddie was, like the guy there.
Oh yeah.
So everyone would come and.
Oh yeah, people would treat you like you were a fucking turd because you weren't Eddie.
Yeah.
And God, this girl used to call Ed, please. God, fucking bitch. Every fucking Ed, please. God. But yeah, Eddie was the man. I mean, he was his man. It was his place. It was a big deal.
And then one day, closed.
Juan was gonna move. Jeff was leaving, and I think maybe Jesse was leaving too. Jeff was leaving because Jeff wanted to go. He wanted to go, and he wanted to just travel. He wanted to. Yeah, he had a bad end of a relationship, and I think he wanted to just go and just not be there and like get a kind of a new thing going. And I think he was just like, yeah, he was just. I think it was he was in a bad space. He wanted to go, so he was going. He was going to travel the world, man. He was fucking bailing, and so he split. And he was going to split, and Eddie didn't want to find anybody to replace him and all shit in the real estate market, blah, blah. And I think Eddie was just like, fuck it. He didn't want to fucking try it. He tried to hire Scotty McEwen at one point, and Scotty McEwen bailed at the last minute to come in. And so he just said, fuck it, and sold the building. Closed the shop, sold the building. And
because I remember we hear in the Midwest, we were like, oh, that place they're done?
No, was it? He just like folded it up.
Like, it was gone.
Yeah, done. Closed it. 4 years.
And then you went to Temple.
Yeah, I didn't know what I was going to do. And I'd asked Freddie. I told him, like, I don't know if I'm going to stay. I don't know if I'm going to open my own place. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do. But can I work at your shop? And Freddie's, he's so awesome. He's like, yeah, sure, dude. I remember I was in Japan when I asked him. He's like, yeah, sure, dude. Whatever you want. And then and I went there, and it was fucking right back to the Wild West again.
Yeah.
Minus the fights. There wasn't any fights, but it was right back to the Wild West. But
it was right over there.
Ghetto as fuck. But yeah, no, Freddie's the prince, man. He's got like, 1 minute he's got fucking crazy drug dealer gangsters in his chair, and they're all like, "Where Freddie at? Where Freddie be at? Freddie, my boy, Freaky Freddie." And then the next minute he's got some fucking Oakland cops in there.
Yeah.
There was like hookers in there and pimps. And like crazy shit when I started working there. It was fucking wild when I first started working there. The first day I worked, Jason McAfee was tattooing this black lady's boob that was so fucking huge that I had never seen anything like it. It was like a fucking flattened watermelon. It was like this gigantic thing, and I remember him tattooing this thing and him putting the bandage on it, and he puts this bandage on it, and he lifts her boob up and wraps the tape around it. And I just started laughing. I was like, why didn't you just put it on the armrest? You could have just put the fucking thing on the armrest. And I was just like, wow, okay, we're doing this thing. And then like the next day, he's tattooing this crazy black girl that's in there, this like total hoochie mama, and she's got, her whole butt is covered in tattoos, but nothing else is covered in tattoos, and it's just covered in like cover-ups. It's like a dude's name covered up with a rose, a dude's name that's obviously covered up in a panther, and all these things just cover-ups there, and Jason's just tattooing. I was like, wow, this is insane.
So it's complete...
Total different change. Yeah, totally different. Super casual, like, work style. Like, nobody really gave a fuck. You come to work, not go to work, whatever. It was, like, very casual, opposed to Eddie being like, if you take days off, you got to make your days up. And Freddie was like, hey, it's cool, dude, whatever you want to do, dude, it's cool. It's cool, bro. Like... Pay for your own shit. Here's your percentage. Come go do whatever you want to do. Like it's whatever, dude. It's cool, and it was great because I kind of like regrouped myself after 222. I was a little bit tired at the end of 222, and I regrouped myself and worked there. And Freddie was super gracious to let me work there and to teach me a bunch of stuff, and I had a great time there. I mean, I started working. I was living in San Francisco. Started working in Oakland. Then I moved to Oakland.
That's where you bought your house?
Yeah, I bought my house.
When you were at Temple, you bought your house?
Yeah. I bought it from one of my customers. One of my customers was a tattooing her, and she said she wanted to sell the house, and I bought her house. Just like that. I was like, oh, I'll buy your house. And she's like, really? And I was like, yeah, sure, I'll buy your house. And then, like, 2 weeks later, I'm like, how do you buy a house? You gotta call this guy. Call the guy, and he's blah, 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 percentage, blah, blah, whatever. And I'm all, fuck, dude. I never even bought a new car before, man. Like, what are you fucking talking about? And he's like, oh, you should come down here. I was like, yeah, I think I should come down there. And then I went down there, and he's like, well, how much money do you have? I'm like, well, I got X amount of money in a shoebox. And he's like, what? I'm like, yeah, no, it's in a shoebox. What do I do with it? And he's like, well, you gotta put it in the bank. I was like, what are you, crazy? Like, yeah, what are you crazy? So then I just, like, had never grown up in that part. Like, I didn't know that part.
Sure.
I'd been living this, like, pirate's life.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? I'd been, like,
whatever.
fucking, those fucking motorcycles and Cadillacs and fucking girls and things. I didn't realize I was supposed to put my money in the bank. You just paid your bills from the bank. Whatever. It's crazy.
So then, when did Rasher come? Did Rasher come back? Did he?
Me and Rasher stayed. We stayed in contact. He drove back and forth across the country in a fucking Toyota truck and flew to Europe and went all over the place. And then he came back and he was in Bend, Oregon. He settled in Bend, Oregon for a while, and then he came down and he went to San Rafael and he was working with Theo, and he was tattooing some lettering on my stomach, some big lettering on my stomach, and I started talking to him, and at the point I was working with Freddie, and it was just time to go.
Yeah.
Like, I knew my time had expired there, and I knew it was time to go. I knew it was best for me and Freddie's relationship and everything else about it. I just needed to go. And so I talked to Jeff. I said, hey, man, I'm thinking about opening a shop. You want to do it with me? And he's like, well, fuck, I heard that these other dudes were going to open a shop.
Now, were you friends with Tim and...
Yeah. I had known Whitehead since the day he started tattooing.
Okay.
He started tattooing the same place I did, and we've known each other forever. And I knew Tim. We weren't really good friends, but I knew Tim. And so Jeff says, Jeff and Tim are talking about opening a shop. I think they might offer me a job. What do you think? Should we do it together? And I said, well, ask them, see if they'd be into it. And so then he asked them, and blah, blah, blah. And then we started dating.
And the marriage.
And that was it. And so then
started.
then we started looking for a place. And I openly told Freddie. Freddie knew about it. We were very open about it. Ed had heard some things wrong about Jeff and Tim, and
Right.
assumed that they had been doing a bunch of stuff behind his back, and they hadn't. They'd been very truthful with him and very open, and he knew just as much as they did at the time, and he thought that they had lied and all that stuff. So they had fired them. He had fired them, and they were working at Temple, which was a good little test of how things were going to be. And then we found the shop, and we opened the shop, and it was the four of us, but we're just partners, and
Right.
we just ran it as, you know, 4 tattoo shops basically in one building,
Right.
and it was awesome. I mean, it was crazy working with those dudes. I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
Whitehead and Tim are fucking retarded.
Right.
How talented they are. You know, it's just insane to watch somebody like. If you want to be humbled, you should watch Tim draw a back piece.
Sure.
You'll be bummed. You'll wonder why you ever even pick up a pencil.
Yeah.
Why you bother? You know, because he's just like draw you 5 different style samurai back pieces. You know, the big clunky fucking ones and the fucking this one and that. Just without even looking at a reference.
That was like, I remember when Blackheart opened. That was like.
So we had a technical difficulty with our cameras.
Long-winded.
Yeah, long-winded.
So, Blackheart, the culmination of you, Jeff Rasher, Tim Lehigh, and Jeff Whitehead
Yes.
starts, and so it's like these 4 powerhouses in the tattoo world.
Yeah. I mean, I could explain part of this sort of. I have these like 4-year segments of my life that have happened. And like it seems like every 4 years I get sort of
Sure, yeah, we
stale
talked
in a
about that.
thing, and it's stale in a thing, and it seems like every time I go somewhere new and I work in another shop, I get revitalized and you get energized and get back into tattooing. I've never had the burnout. I've never had that stuff. I've traveled and I do things like that, and so at Temple, it just sort of. By the time it sort of dissolved there, it just sort of had gotten to a point where it was time for me to go. And so Blackheart happened. And at the time, a bunch of people were like, you know, oh, they're fucking opening up and blah, 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 and all this shit.
Yeah, there was like controversy.
Yeah, there was a
about
lot of shit about it. There was a lot of shit about it. People were saying we were opening up on Grimy and blah, blah, blah. People in Iowa don't even know what the fuck they're talking about. You know, and we did open a shop close to Grimy, but Grimy didn't even have a shop with a fucking sign.
Right.
If you didn't know the fucking phone number, you weren't getting there, you know. He was like off the grid doing his thing. But we wanted to open a street shop, you know, sort of as much of a street shop as we could do because we all worked primarily by appointment.
Yeah.
But we wanted a street shop. We wanted flash. We wanted a fucking waiting room. We wanted, you know, our things, and we wanted to do our shit and just have our own place where it was our own place and we could do what we wanted to do. And so instead of 2 separate people opening 2 different shops, we didn't want to be our own competition with our friends. And so we just did it together.
Right.
And so Blackheart happened, and we took forever to find a fucking place. And then we found a place, and we fucking built it. We built it ourselves, and we did it all ourselves. And it's sort of our thing now, you know.
Sure.
Now it's evolved, and it was me, Jeff, and Tim, and then Jeff left. Jeff had to go, and so there was me and Jeff and Tim, and we had just hired Nick Roden at the time. And I knew Nick probably better than everybody else because me and him had rode cross country with Oliver on motorcycles.
Oh, you did that before you hired him?
Yeah,
Oh, I
we did
didn't
that.
realize
No,
that.
yeah, we did
Okay.
that. We did that. I did that right when we opened the shop. Right after we opened the shop, my wife was pregnant with my son, and I wanted to ride my motorcycle cross country, kind of an easy rider fashion. I'd never been in New Orleans, and I wanted to ride my motorcycle in New Orleans. And I talked to Oliver about it, and then Oliver got involved in it, and it turned into the Oliver show a little bit. You know, like my original plan was I wanted to fish my way across the country. I wanted to have a collapsible fishing pole, and I wanted to fish across country and go to New Orleans and back. And then Oliver was like, "Well, fuck, man, if we're going to New Orleans, let's just go all the way. Let's ride coast to coast." I'm like, fuck, all right. So I built this motorcycle out of spare parts, and we rode to Jacksonville, Florida, and then got to Jacksonville, Florida, and we were camping the whole way. We got there and then found out Katrina was happening. We're like, holy shit, we better get the fuck out of here.
Right.
So we just spent a day there and then turned around and rode back. And dodged, we were a day ahead of Katrina. So we like rode across, riding out of there, and then like seeing people in fucking gas stations with everything they owned in their cars, man, in Mississippi and shit. Like people, we literally saw a dude that had a parrot, a cat, and a dog in his car at a gas station. And I was like, whoa. Like, sort of the seriousness of it was like, holy shit, man. And people, it was just every gas station was people on the phone trying to find a place to stay, all the shit. And then, so I rode cross country, so I knew Nick real well. And we wanted to hire somebody, and we decided that, the shop was busy enough, and we had enough overflow that we could feed somebody else. So we started talking about wanting to hire somebody, and then Nick was like, hey, man, if you guys are hiring somebody, I'd like to put my name in the hat. And we're like, fuck, man.
Road
So
dog.
Road dog, man. Fucking road dog, man. And so Rasher had talked to me about it, and we're like, fucking road dog, man. So road dog came. And he started working, man, and it was great. He was, he was young. He's not so young now.
Well, back up a second.
No.
This is good. There's, like, one of the first things when we first met, I had asked you, and I'm going to ask you now.
Okay.
Because you might as well do it, because it's your interview. There was a big thing in the Skin and Ink.
Oh,
with,
yeah, Bob
with
Baxter
Bob
suck
Baxter.
my dick.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Bob
about
Baxter.
Ed Hardy and all these things.
Yeah, so, we could get this clarified now.
Yeah, we could
once and for all.
Because
once and for all.
When we first met, I had been tattooed by Ed, and Ed, as far as I'm concerned, was Ed's why I'm tattooing.
Right.
So,
it's why any of us are tattooing.
So when we first met in Salt Lake, one of the first things I asked you for dinner was like, well, what was up with that Skin and Ink article? Because I wanted to hear it from the horse's mouth instead of all the fucking bullshit that went on.
Right.
And you squared off with me right away, so I figured, all right, well.
Yeah, so.
The article. Which probably most people have no idea.
Right. Well, some people do know. I mean, there's people that have been tattooing longer than fucking 4 years know what I'm talking about.
Well, yeah.
And will hopefully understand it from this point on. So Bob Baxter, who is the father of Jesse Tuesday, Riley Baxter, Noah Baxter, who has 3 sons that are tattooers, was the editor at Skin and Ink. Wanted to do an article on the shop. Okay, cool. No problem, whatever. Has since this dude, who I now consider a douchebag, to the shop to interview us. And we have like a back room in the shop, so everybody's going and taking turns going in there, and he's interviewing people. This is how the interview starts. I walk in the back door, and I'm like, fuck, man, I should have got a Red Bull. And he goes, speaking of Red Bulls, what do you think about Ed Hardy energy drinks? Oh, what the fuck? And I'm like, I don't know, man. I know Ed's had 2 hip replacements. I don't think he's, at the time I associated energy drinks with running for some reason. So I was like, I don't think he's running really anywhere. And I just sort of comedically said this thing. And then I look and the tape recorder's going. And I'm like, oh, fuck. Okay, whatever. Okay, whatever. This dude's like, I don't know this dude at all. And so he starts asking me all kinds of questions. We do the interview, we talk about the shop, and the entire interview he's trying to bait me into like dramatic things, saying like, well, so people have said you guys have opened up on people without anybody knowing. I was like, well, everybody that needed to know knew. You know what I mean? And my answers were like very specific about it. I was like, I worked for Freddie. Freddie knew I was opening a shop. That's all that mattered to me. And he's like, well, people said that you opened up on other people's shops. And I was like, Grimy knew we were opening a shop. Sure. He knew all about it. Everybody talked, he was talking like Tim and Jeff are really good friends when they talked to him. Everybody knew about their fucking deal. It was no big deal. And so he's trying to get me to talk to this shit. And at one point he goes, what do you think about people calling Ed Hardy a sellout? And I was like, a sellout? I'm like, what? And this is the very beginning of the Ed Hardy clothing thing.
Sure.
We all know how that turned out. But at the time, at the nucleus of it, I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, it's sellout. Like, Ed's been trying, and I had a very educated answer to him. And I said, Ed's been trying to mainstream tattooing forever. Like, there's paintings and with art. I was like, obviously they're idiots. Like, they don't know there's no retirement plan in tattooing.
Sure.
Like, there's no fucking 401k in tattooing, man. Like, this is a retirement plan for him. Like, obviously, he's not selling. You've never seen Hardy Mark's publication? Like, the dude makes books about tattooing and is fucking about art and shit like that. I was like, never said that Ed Hardy was a sellout. I never said any of the things that they said I said in it. And it says, the interview says that I screamed sellout, which is not true. I never said that. Right. Like, I wouldn't have my job if it wasn't for Ed Hardy.
Sure.
Like, I wouldn't do the tattoos I want to do because Ed Hardy. All the tattoos I do are because of books that Ed Hardy put out.
Yeah.
Like, there's no fucking way.
Yeah, everybody started tattooing because of tattoo time.
Yeah, turning this fucking, the article is a fucking tragedy, right? And so I see Bob at a tattoo convention, like the week or two before it comes out. He's like, oh, whatever. Maybe a little bit longer than that. He's like, oh, I I just finished editing your guys' article. And I was like, oh, great. Did you make us sound like a bunch of assholes? Like, jokingly.
Sure.
And he's like, no, I just, I took a couple of the fucks out of there and this and that and whatever. And I'm like, okay, cool, whatever. Then the article comes out. And I'm like, what the fuck?
There was some backlash on that article.
And, well, there's backlash and then all this celebration, too. All these people are fucking, oh, man, it's so awesome you said that shit. And I never took credit for it. I told everybody I didn't say that shit. Like, even when people were, like, patting me on the back, I was like, I didn't say that shit, man. I would never say that shit. Like, I would never say that. That's fucking retarded. And then all these people got on, like, the Reed Street Forum, and these people just started talking, wanted to boycott me, boycott the shop, and all the shit that we were, like, the devil for fucking talking shit about Ed, and none of it was ever said. It was just Bob Baxter. What it turned out to be, Bob Baxter had a vendetta with Ed because Pat Fish fucking published an article, and Bob Baxter's a fucking asshole for printing this in a tattoo magazine about how tattooers should be more honest on their taxes and blah, 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 blah. And what the fuck is it that bitch's fucking word? Like, if you want to be honest on your taxes or whatever you want to do with your financial shit, that's your fucking business. Yeah. You don't publish it in a fucking magazine and say that tattooers should be more honest and this and that, and then you're just fucking throwing us all under the fucking bus. Like, what the fuck are you doing? So Ed said, fuck you, and no longer sent Bob one of his classic letters saying, fuck you, you're a douchebag. Hopefully that's what he says. And quit writing for Skin and Ink, because he used to have an article in Skin and Ink, which was the best part of Skin and Ink, was that Ed had something to do with it.
Right.
And so what ended up happening was our article was used as sort of this passive-aggressive fucking payback on Ed. So I'm like, Jesus Christ, man, there's so much shit going around about it. People are telling me, like, I'm not on the Reed Street Forum. Like, I don't know. I'm just tattooing. Like, I don't know anything about this shit. I don't even think I have a computer at this time. And people are telling me all the shit people are saying, and I'm bummed, man. Like, I'll be, for one thing, like, I'm a very opinionated person, and anybody that knows me knows I have my opinion, and I don't give a I won't hold it back. I don't say things behind people's back. I don't want them to know. Like, if I don't like you, you know I don't fucking like you. I don't fuck around with that shit. I don't care, you know what I mean? Like, but I never said that shit. And it puts everybody at the shop in a bad space, too, because it says people say these things and blah, blah, blah. And then Bob sends me, Jesse Tuesday is like, fuck, man, I fucking talked to my dad last night, blah, blah, blah. I told my dad, and Jesse tells me everything he tells his dad about how these guys were influential in tattooing in San Francisco and all this shit. He tells me all these things he tells his dad. Well, a couple days later, I get a letter in the mail from Bob. And in it is Bob saying all the things his son said to him, as if he's like, I knew, and it says, and I have a thing, and I'll publish it when I put it, maybe I'll put it up in this article or whatever, and it says, like, you guys were influential in tattooing in San Francisco, and it says everything that his son scolded him about. And his son fucking yelled at him on the phone about how he just fucked us.
Right.
And so it says this whole thing like, oh, blah, blah, and if you guys would like to post a rebuttal in the feedback section, I'd be happy to do it for you. And I was kind of like, got the thing, and I showed it to everybody at the shop, and I was like, well, fuck, man, I guess, he realized that he fucked up. That's cool, whatever. Like, I don't even want to bring the subject up again. Let's just let this bitch die. You know what I mean? Like, let's just let it go. Fuck it, let's just let it, I don't want to, bring any more attention to this stupid thing. And so the article, well, then the next fucking issue comes out. All these people are talking shit about, fuck those dudes in the article, all this shit, and then Bob jumps in and writes something about how we're a bunch of crybabies and all this shit, and I'm like, what the fuck, man? Like, what the fuck are you doing, right? And now Bob Baxter, who has nothing to do with tattooing, is now slagging me in his fucking magazine. I'm like, what the fuck? So obviously, like, his pussy's hurt that, like, I didn't respond to his article. Sure. His letter didn't get a rebuttal from me or something. I didn't, like, make him feel okay.
Well, what he wanted to do was keep this flame war going back and forth.
Because that's good.
Yeah, that works for his magazine.
That is the nucleus of why this website exists. Because an article in type is always dictated by the transcribing or whoever the fuck is doing it. It's never like a genuine thing of what the person says. Like, I've only had one article ever in my life in a magazine that I've truly liked. And it was me and Jesse. Jesse Tuesday interviewed me, I think, for Skin and Ink or one of those tattoo magazines. And he put a tape recorder on the dashboard of my car, and we drove to breakfast, and he asked me a bunch of questions. He gave it to this girl named Tobiah, who exactly transcribed it word for word what I said, and it got printed. It's the only one that has ever, like, actually was what I said and what I meant. Everybody else is like sensationalizing something to make it seem so good for people to read it. So, with that said, fuck Bob Baxter. And after that, he starts he's talking in the San Jose Mercury News about how much money tattooers make and all of this shit. Now that he doesn't work at Skin and Ink, no one cares about him. He has nothing to do with tattooing. Right. He's just a dude that was an editor who just kissed everybody's ass. And so now has nothing to do with tattooing. Oh, now he's got his fucking on the road whatever stupid thing, and anybody that is listening to that guy's an idiot. And then he says he got misquoted in this thing talking about how much tattooers make, but he has no business talking about what people make. You aren't a fucking tattooer. You are throwing 3 of your kids under the fucking bus. And I tell Juan about it. Juan sends some email. They go back and forth in fucking emails about this shit. The end result of the end of the email says, Bob Baxter says in the thing, I'm not here to protect tattooing. I'm here to report on it. Which says a lot about Bob Baxter. Sure. And so Juan, of course, forwarded that to everybody in the world, which if anybody knows anything, people started posting things on Facebook saying, I'm here to protect tattooing. All these people started to put these things up, and nobody knew what it was about, but it's about Bob Baxter. Right. That is the thorn in my side. Yeah. That thing. And so, people have hated me. People have hated me. It has ended my friendship with Aaron. Aaron no longer talks to me, and I was told that it was because of that article. All these people have, these people said all these things about me, and it was on a forum, and they all publicly said things about me, and that's fine. And I just, if you read the thing, I deserved it, and if you actually believe it, then that's fine. I don't care. Right. You know what I mean? I don't care. But and then I was having breakfast with Doug, Ed's son, one day. And I was talking about machines, and I wanted to do the same with me. And I said something that your dad's probably got a really amazing machine collection. I wonder if one day he would let me take pictures of his machines. And Doug says, hey, dude, my dad's still kind of pissed about that Bob Baxter article. And I was all, fuck, dude. Right. Like, this is Long Beach a couple years ago. Yeah, we heard. Yeah. And I felt, it made me sick for a while. Like, I was really bummed for a while. Because I sort of felt like, if I was a Christian and all of a sudden someone told me, hey, man, Jesus doesn't like you, man. Sure. Jesus just thinks you're an asshole, dude. Right. You know what I mean? And I was like, fuck, after all these years, Ed still thinks that I said those things. It's just like, it just bummed me out. It's like, God. I mean, hate me for being a loudmouth, but at least I'm being a loudmouth about the truth. You know what I mean? But don't hate me for being something I'm saying something I didn't say. I didn't say that, and it really is a bummer. Not, whatever. I can't do anything about it. No. No, except for, you said your piece. I mean, I've heard it before. That's why we... Yeah, it's a bummer.
So, after all that, after Blackheart opens, and after Whitehead leaves, and it's just you 3... it's 4. We had just hired Roden. Just hired Roden. Roden got into the mess. He walked into the door to the mess with Whitehead. Which, I feel bad for him for that. That's right about the time we met. Yes. Because Maya was working there. Yeah, we hired Maya. And so we had Nick working. We arm wrestled. Fucking schooled you. Look it up on YouTube. Schooled this motherfucker. Never arm wrestled before in my life. Yep. Schooled him. Anyhow, he could whoop my ass in a street fight, though. So we had Nick, and then, the shop was good. And then we hired, our first employee, I think maybe might have been Mike Lucena, which did not work out good. I think he was really our first employee was Mike Lucena. And he didn't work out so good, so he moved to New York. And then we had Nick, and then after Nick, we hired Cody. And Cody and Juan came about at the same time. And that's where you guys are right now. Yeah, and we've been blessed to have a shop that's busy enough to... Everybody lives a pretty good life, I think. I would like to think they do. I think that our shop is busy, and we try to keep a well-rounded shop. We have people that are capable of doing everything that you would want. Sure. I'm lucky enough I get to work with totally fucking awesome tattooers that are awesome people, and it's rad. And the shop has, I think, become sort of like a little bit of an institution, I would hope. Oh yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's hard to know. You're sitting in the middle of it. You don't know what the fuck it really is. But, well, yeah. I mean,
so, you know, this being the internet forum, how do you feel about internet forums? And, you know, like this explosion in the last 5 years.
of tattooing or of
of
the internet involvement?
Of the internet involvement. I mean, because that's obviously sped all kinds of...
Yeah, it's weird, man. It's fucking weird to me because I existed. Yeah,
Cavemanish.
Thank you. I am very cavemanish. I am not a computer savvy person. I don't ever want to really be a computer savvy person. But I think that it's changed tattooing drastically in so many levels that people feel a perpetual need to like get all like to just get all this instant affirmation of themselves, and it's like their career is like shoots and is down in a second. You know what I mean? It's like they're peaking and they're gone and they're fucking done. It's not like
depends on how many
everybody wants to be this world-renowned, notorious fucking tattooer instead of just being consistently busy in the town they live in. You know what I mean? Like, everybody wants to be, like, fucking on the fucking world, and I want to be on a TV show, and I want fucking my clothing line, and I want this thing, and I want that thing, and everybody wants to, you know, and it's everybody's fucking climbing over each other and stabbing each other in the back and fucking this career, this job up for the same $50.
Yeah.
Nobody gets rich in tattooing. Nobody realizes no one's rich in tattooing. Mr. Cartoon can say he charges $1 million an hour, and Cartoon's fucking badass, dude. He's awesome, and he can charge $1 million an hour. That motherfucker ain't rich, dude. He's not. You're not talking about Bill Gates' money, man. You're talking about.
You're not talking about wealth.
Yeah, no, you're talking about a dude who has a badass fucking car. You know what I mean? That's fucking it. Nobody gets fucking rich, man. I mean, Ed is the closest thing, and if anybody's supposed to get rich on tattooing, Ed should get rich on tattooing, man. I mean, what the fuck with that Ed Hardy clothing thing? That just would turn into a beast of its own, you know? Sure. Air fresheners and steering wheel covers, and what the fuck, dude? Like, people come in and ask for that. I want the love, kill slowly. Like, what the fuck, dude? It ain't a heart and a skull anymore. It's love, kill slowly now. Like, all right, dude.
Everything's branded.
Yeah, you know? I mean, it's just turned into this fucking thing, you know? It's like this insane shit. And I think it's lost. Okay, what I think it's lost is it has lost a lot of the soul of what this used to be. I think this used to be, like when I started tattooing, I didn't want to be a part of the regular job. I didn't want part of the regular world, man. I wanted to be a fucking tattooer. I wanted to be the closest thing I could be to being a land pirate as possible. Like, I didn't want to wear a fucking tie. I didn't want to be any of that shit. I didn't want to live in the world that everybody wants it to be now. Like, people, there's been these periods in tattooing where people come in, they fucking get all pierced up and crazy and whatever the fuck, and all in your face, and try to force people, you gotta accept me. You gotta accept me. Look at me, I turned myself into a freak. Accept me. It's like, no.
Leave me alone.
No. Just stop it.
Yeah.
You know, just stop the fucking shit. Nobody needs to accept you. Accept yourself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it turns into this thing where everybody tries to put all their shit out onto the world for everybody else. And it's like, no, man. It's your shit, man. Yeah, you keep it yourself. Keep it in your world. You know what I mean? And it's been this period of that shit, of that happening. And then you have these TV shows.
Yeah, that was my next question. What are your opinions? Because we both have friends that are on these TV shows.
I have friends on them, and I love them. I love the friends that I have that are on there, and I love them, respect them, and all of them know that I completely disagree with what they're doing. Yeah. I think that it is the most short-sighted thing for tattooing ever. I think it's horrible for this job. I think that by mainstreaming it, not only are you... let's say mainstreaming it, because whatever, fuck ever. I mean, tattooing's huge now, right? It's not even, it's a huge beast. But it's become this thing of, it's fine, it's acceptable. People don't hold on to their purse when you're in the grocery store and you're totally tattooed anymore. That part of it's fine. You know what I mean? But I don't want to have anything in common with that fucking douchebag that's in the grocery store. That's some yuppie fucking dude that's like, oh man, hey dude, fucking cool tats, man. Well, like, I don't want anything to do with that dude. I don't want to fucking know that dude. I don't want that dude in my life. I don't want to be of the same tribe as that motherfucker. And it's
That's the
creating
original
this
reason
thing.
you got tattooed.
Yeah, this original. It's becoming this thing where now all of us have something in common, and it's all these people. It's like this byproduct of all the shit, and all these every tattooer that's on fucking TV that thinks they all act like, oh well, you know, it's gonna be better for the fucking tattooer. I'm trying to promote tattooing and make tattooing better. No, you're fucking not. You're not doing it for me. You're not doing it for him. You're not doing it for him. You're doing it for yourself. You want to be that guy on fucking TV, and you want people to be like, oh my God, you're so-and-so. You're on Scratch My Nuts Inc. Oh my God. You know what I mean? That's what you want. Like, you need that fulfillment in your life. Well, be a fucking good tattooer. Learn how to fucking draw. Do a fucking good tattoo, and people will be fucking stoked on you. People are like, dude, I love my tattoo. You're the best. I'm bringing my girlfriend to you. Like, how much more do you need in your life? You know, like, right. And so it's just selling it all down. Like, and everybody tries to act like Ami James is like, I'm gonna promote tattooing. Like, no, you ain't gonna promote your motherfucking bank account, dude. Yeah, you don't promote tattooing. If you're gonna promote tattooing, you wouldn't have shitty tattoos being done on a shitty show with shitty people in a shitty ass competition that's just like a train wreck. You know what I mean? That people can't stop watching it because it's a fucking train wreck. But now I get to answer the question. You ever watch those shows? You watch those shows? Let me ask you a question. You watch those shows on TV? Fuck no! Fuck, I don't watch that shit! Are you fucking kidding me? Don't ask me no shit about it either.
Talking about Walking Dead. That's a whole different story.
We're not talking about Walking Dead or Game of Thrones. That's some other bullshit. That's some other shit we're talking about. Zombies and fucking dragons and shit. The White Walkers. Don't fuck around. Fucking bullshit. So I think it is very short-sighted. I think it's horrible for tattooing. I think they openly talk about money. They put out this thing to people what people think tattooers are, and then tattooers need to become that thing that people think it's are. It's bad. The whole fucking thing's bad. It's terrible. And it turns people into total fucking idiots. And it's bad. It's a bad deal. And a million people are saying it's a bad deal, but it is terrible. And I think it's taken I think it's taken like a lot of the joy of the job and a lot of the like sort of camaraderie of the job and that sort of like family that it was. Mm-hmm. Because you've been tattooing long enough, you know what it was. Like there was like 4 tattoo conventions a year, then it was 6 tattoo conventions a year, and those 6 conventions, everybody fucking went to them, man. Sure. And it was a great fucking time. And now there's a convention, multiple conventions every weekend. Yeah. You know what I mean? And you go to them and you're like, there's a million dudes with banners with their own fucking face painted on it, like, with a tattoo machine, like, oh, and I'm a fucking zombie, oh, you know, like with a fucking blood splitter, oh, I'm a fucking zombie, you know, like, the fuck, you gotta roll that thing up and take that home. I'm so proud of myself, my banner, I'm a zombie, you know, like, right. I'm a fucking pastel zombie guy, you know, like, fuck, dude.
Is it because we're getting old?
No, well, partially because I'm older. I'm 22 years tattooing or whatever, but it's like, so you see this, like the next cycle of them come, and they all think they're the first one to do it, and you're like, oh god, yeah, we're turning old guy, yeah. You know what I'm turning into old dudes on the Muppets. The 2 old dudes. It's me and Rasher. I'm like, you know, what are those dudes' names? You know those dudes' names?
I don't.
Fuck, the dudes on the Muppets, they're the best.
But it's like, you know, when we were young, we weren't as ridiculous as these people now, but...
No, I was a retard. But Gil Marty threatened to break your fucking hand, man.
Right. Yeah,
it was different. I mean, people hated you. Crazy, scary old biker dudes hated you, so you got your fucking ducks in a row and shut the fuck up, man. Yeah. Because you would get fucked up. Crazy Ace was a crazy motherfucker. His name is Crazy Ace. He was crazy. You don't fuck around at his tattoo convention, your ass would be dead in a dumpster, dude. You fucking act right. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's not that way now. It's different. There's fucking Solon girls. Who the fuck cares, man? Go the fuck away. Yeah. Get the fuck out of here. I don't give a fuck about you and your fucking Ink Nation and your fucking energy drink can, and fuck off, dude. It's all the people that aren't fucking tattooers because tattooers are fucking stupid and they give it away. They give it all the fuck away, and they don't realize that everybody that's making money on tattooing, that's getting fucking rich, isn't a fucking tattooer. And they give away their fucking TV shows, and their fucking producers make their money, and it's fucking people that make fucking stupid energy drinks that you're just jockeying to get your fucking design on a can, or because you're gonna, oh, dude, my fucking design's on a can. It's like, it's fucking retarded. And everybody, they're just giving a fuck away for their 5 minutes of fame. They're just willing to give the whole shit. This whole thing that has been laid before you by a million fucking tattooers, grinding away on fucking people, doing their homework, doing fucking the best job they can. You're going to come and just fucking give it away to every turd. You're going to apprentice every fucking dickhead that's like an 18-year-old vegan straight edge kid that thinks he knows everything about the fucking world, and they're going to fucking do it all, and you're going to give it all to them. You're going to tell them how to get their fucking machines and their needles and their fucking best pigments and all of the shit and what books to have that they can trace Todd Noble's fucking line drawing book, and they can take this thing and do that thing, and they don't have to fucking work one fucking minute at it. Not one fucking minute. And they're just giving it all to them. Yeah. And it's fucking retarded. And it's sad.
It's a sorry state.
No, you say it like that. I mean, there are people. There are people in it. There are people like you. There are people in tattooing that don't do that. That don't have 14 fucking apprentices at their shop. Because actually, you're such a dick that you can't keep a fucking regular employee. You have to teach people how to tattoo to have a fucking employee. Because no righteous fucking tattooer that's a decent tattooer will work in your fucking shop. They won't stay with you because you suck. Yeah, so you got to get some fucking retard that is, I mean, that's what it is. It's like, people, no one will work with you because you're a clown.
Right.
So you got to apprentice somebody. You got to get another fucking retard up in there. Teach that retard to be a retard just like you. Thank you. Thank you, dude. You're the best. Keep it going, buddy. There's my tangent. I went on a tangent.
You did.
The beginning was so good. No tangent. The beginning was so good and no tangent.
Well, it was an hour of just talk.
That is there you go. That's the real life of my life right there.
Well, like now that, I mean, everyone's getting older, and this is one of the questions that you asked me that I thought was interesting. Like, how has, like, family and kids not only affected your your tattooing and work life, because we all work like dogs,
right?
But how does it just affect your person? As like we talk about the kid, we talk about kids all the time.
Yeah.
What
it's a totally different.
What my kids are doing, what his kids are doing. So it's like instead of talking about like, oh, look at her ass, look at that. But I was like, oh, did you see that? Oh, this kid show is awesome, and man, my kid likes this. And, oh, cool.
Yeah. Writers of Burke.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, How to Train Your Dragon, dude. Oh, it's fucking totally awesome. You gotta check it out, dude. It has changed. Well, my life is totally, I mean, it's different now. I have kids. I have 2 kids, man. I have a boy and a girl, Henry and Adeline, and they are the most important thing in my life.
Sure.
And to me, the world is a different place. Like, I don't do the things I used to. I used to be dangerous and crazy and do stupid shit, and now that's not it. In that part of it, and it's also, like, it has made me, nice, just put that anywhere. It has made me love what I do that much more. It has made me respect, like this, now that I have kids, it has made me respect the tradition of this job, and what it has given me, because without it, I wouldn't have them.
Sure.
I met my wife at Temple Tattoo.
Yeah, I mean,
I met her there. I mean, if I wasn't at Temple Tattoo, if I wasn't a tattooer, I would never have met my wife.
Right.
Who, God bless her for putting up with those tangents you saw, has given me these 2 kids, and they are fucking amazing beasts.
Yeah, they're rad.
They are amazing, and I hope that I can give them a life through this job, and they can live a life like I have. That they can live this free life. They can travel the fucking world and do all of these things and not sit in a fucking cubicle and not worry about if fucking somebody accepts my fucking 47 face piercings. Like, I want them to be free and righteous souls.
Yeah.
Like, I want them to just be, right now at their life, they are they're exactly who they were born to be. They are them. And then you grow up, and as you start growing up, the entire world piles on you what they think you should be. And I don't want that for my kids. I want my kids, if my daughter wants to be a tattooer, I want her to be a fucking rockin' tattooer. I want her to be awesome. I want her to be herself, though.
Right.
I don't want her wearing a crass patch because every other punk kid has a crass patch, and that's what you got to have on your shit. I want her to have a Yo Gabba Gabba patch because the little girl loves Yo Gabba Gabba, man.
Sure.
And you know what I mean? Like, I want those people, and so it makes me, I hope that having kids has made me a better person. I don't know. But it's changed my life completely. It's made me to be able to sit down and appreciate the act of tattooing. The process of tattooing. Because my house is fucking crazy.
Yeah.
There's my home life is insane. Yeah,
the quietest time
anybody that has more than one
tattooing.
kid gets it. Yeah, the quietest my life will be, and the most calm, and it is the craziest the shop will be. It is still the calmest moment of my life, and I can just sit, and I practice like my meditation in it, and I can just sit, and I can just be there, and I can just be doing this outline, and I'm just doing this outline, and I'm gonna do this outline the best I can do this outline today, and that's what I'm gonna do, and then it's made me be able to like really focus on the craft of it and enjoying the process and not worrying about what I got to do about other things. And it's made me grow up a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, I hadn't had to grow up. I've been living a Peter Pan lifestyle, except for the no tights.
Come on.
No tights. I don't like tights. But yeah, I'm so grateful for them. I'm grateful for this job. I'm grateful for the people that have helped me. You know, like I said, Aaron was the most important person in my life, who doesn't speak to me, but he's the most important person in my life because he gave me my first job. And when I had hit 15 years tattooing, I thanked him. I emailed him to thank him for getting me this job. And we hadn't talked in a long time, but I thanked him for getting me involved in tattooing and that I had gotten a great life. And my son was about to be born, so it was like a sort of a really reflective moment. And I couldn't imagine any other way.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine my life. I don't understand. I love it when people quit tattooing. I think it's great. Get the fuck out.
Yeah, it's amazing.
But I couldn't imagine not doing this. I love every part of it. I love building machines. I love making pigments. I love drawing. I like the stencil part. I like all the parts about it. I love it. It's the smell of it, the sound of it, the annoying customer with the stinky ass foot. Maybe I don't love that. I got a little teary-eyed talking about my kids. But yeah, I mean, I love this job. I love everything about it, and I won't let anybody take it away.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why I get so upset about it is I feel like all these people are trying to ruin.
Well, you're passionate for it.
Yeah, I think that they're trying to. Everybody's kind of constantly trying to impose onto tattooing what they think it should be, and it's well established. You don't need any. There's no other. Don't need anybody else guiding this thing through. Yeah. It's fine. It's not mine. Someone else said, like somebody had said, it's not mine. I don't own tattooing. I don't own this thing. I'm just in this thing for a minute. I'll be dead. Somebody else will be tattooing. There'll be somebody else doing it. It's not mine. I'm just part of this thing, and I'm hoping that I have a positive role in this thing. And I hope that, which is where I started with the site, was the hoping that I could promote not only good tattooing, but that I could promote good tattooing and good people. Mm-hmm. And it was people that I liked and I respected the people that I wanted them to be on it. It's not that I'm really selective or I only put my friends on it or whatever. I think that it's important that the good people and the people that do the work and the people that deserve it get the notoriety.
Sure.
I think that being a great tattooer isn't just always doing the best tattoo. Being a great tattooer is being the right person at the right time for that job. You know what I mean? Like, I think that I touched my eyeball with metal shavings now. Yeah, I lost it. That was it. My eyeball burns. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think there's so much to tattooing, and people try to make it people try to own it, and you can't own this thing. Nobody can own it.
Yeah.
You just rent it for a while. Mm-hmm. And if you're not an asshole, you will do something positive and good for tattooing. And you will respect it. And all the people that I know that I'm friends with respect tattooing and try to do a positive thing in it. You know, they respect the trade and they rise to the occasion enough. And, yeah.
All right.
I think that's long enough.
No, anything else? You have anything else?
I don't know. Do I win the longest interview award? I think Oliver's might be longer.
Is it?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I hope it's not the longest one.
I hope so.
Oh, God. Maybe it will be. Who knows?
All right.
Hopefully not. We can edit it out.
Let's
Let's edit out my tangent.
No
There's no editing. No, there will be no editing.
Anything else?
We'll have to edit the two videos together. That'll be it. I want to thank you for doing this. Thank you for interviewing me. I was once interviewed by Juan and Brian Burke. And my pal Juan is supposed to edit it for the last 2 years, and so I think his computer crashed and he lost the interview. So you bypassed that one. There's probably a really good tangent on that one too. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't get any crazy down and dirty
No,
shop stuff, which is
no.
be left out.
Nobody needs to know that stuff. But yeah, that's it.
Awesome.
That's all I got. I don't want to say anything else.
All right. Thanks for the interview.
Thank you.
All right.
I turn it off.
Yeah, go ahead. Hit the button like Luca. Press the button.
Press the